Welcome, everyone, to the Newvision Oldways podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a Newvision Oldways fan, welcome back and enjoy season 5. And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to Newvision Oldways, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, fellow Visioneers, to another great episode of the Newvision Oldways podcast. And wow, we are going to travel down some roads over the next 3 episodes that I can assure you are bumpy roads for sure, but roads that I'm actually glad that we're driving down. But before we do that, I had a number of interesting comments about the last episode, the one entitled Dreams Don't Expire, a story of starting where you are. It appears to me now more than ever that the prevailing sentiment is that there are so many people out there who feel stuck in their daily routines, so set in their ways, so bogged down with life in general, that they truly don't believe that their dreams will ever come true. And even worse, they also believe that those dreams will never take shape at all. I know, believe me, I know, life can throw a curveball at you at any time. I have spoken here and there about my own life difficulties in several episodes, but the one thing I have learned is, and it's so true, in most cases, this too shall pass. It's something that is so hard to see through when you are in the middle of a tough or difficult time in life, but that's the moment. Honestly, folks, that's the moment when things look the darkest. If you could find the strength from anything I talked about in these podcast episodes, that's when you'll find what is meant for you. Believe in yourself at all times, no matter what. Never let an event like a divorce, a death of a loved one, or a close friend, a job loss, or anything define you. They are, in fact, events, not who you are. It's never too late to take that step and move forward. I know it can be exhausting and frustrating, but you can do it. Never stop fighting that good fight, and it will happen. Belief, faith, love, it's the superpowers we all can have. Now, what are we getting into today? When I launched Newvision Oldways, I knew I wanted to explore topics that challenge us to think differently, or to at least widen our perspectives about the world around us. I want the podcast to be a positive experience that helps us all grow and to ultimately connect more deeply with the world around us, not to fear it like many do. But I will be honest, when it comes to gender identity, transgender issues, and the broader LGBTQ plus experience, I was stepping into extremely unfamiliar territory. Not only am I not an expert, I don't have any experience with gender studies at all. And yes, I will freely admit to being as ignorant as the next person about any of this. The thing to remember is ignorance isn't hate. Ignorance, when freely acknowledged, can be a space for learning and at the very least a space for seeing past our blinders and trying to understand the world around us. And during this interview with Dr. Mary Tiede, a professor of psychology and gender studies at Brockport State College here in New York, I came into this conversation with questions, a lot of questions, with curiosity. And I tried to have an open mind to jump into an area that, quite frankly, people are scared to talk about for fear of some kind of lashing out that will cause them pain. But since that same ignorance that I spoke about earlier drove this conversation, that ignorance allows me to go down this rabbit hole and not fear what comes my way. Asking questions is a sign of understanding. We can't learn simply by being told what to think. We need to get there on our own. And that's exactly why this 3-part series exists. Too often, we shy away from topics that we don't understand. We fear saying the wrong thing, asking the wrong questions, or exposing our own ignorance. But I've learned that ignorance isn't a flaw. It's a starting point. It's the space where learning begins. Dr. Tiede brings a lot to the table here. She not only brings expert knowledge, but a sense of clarity, compassion, and a depth to our conversation that I greatly appreciate. She is helping me, and hopefully my listeners, begin to unpack the complexities of gender, the lived realities of transgender individuals, and the importance of inclusive understanding. What matters here, no matter what your view is the willingness to learn, empathize, and to evolve. Because in the end, understanding isn't a destination, it's a practice. And every conversation brings us one step closer to a better world. And if you have the courage to go down this road with me, and I hope you do, then there is no better time to get to this than right now. So let's get started with episode 43, Learning Out Loud. Gender, Identity, and the Questions We Fear to Ask. A conversation with Dr. Mary Tiede, Part 1. Mary, welcome to the show.
Tony, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I am very happy and excited to get this discussion rolling. It's a very sensitive subject, and I know we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, and who knows where it's going to go, but I figured let's just start with the basics. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you got to be a professor in this field and why you chose it.
Okay. Who am I? I chose a field in psychology broadly. And actually, I shouldn't even say that because my PhD is in human development. It's just that my background prior to that is psychology. In terms of gender specifically, the reason why I ended up creating a class, Psychology of Gender, is because in my child psych class, there was just one chapter, one unit on identity development, and the gender stuff, it really fascinated me. So I don't have some amazing tale to tell. It's just that I loved that unit. I loved teaching it. And when the opportunity to create a new class around the psychology of gender came up, I jumped on it. In terms of why do I research it, again, I'm just really interested in gender in terms of, if I'm saying too much, just let me know.
Not at all.
My first area of interest was, well, what are the similarities and differences in terms of between cis males and cis females, men and women? Come to find out, we're more similar than different, but we live in a society that is super gendered, and if you do one thing, the people are like, oh, you're acting like a man. If you step outside of that, you're acting like a woman, whatever it might be. And then in terms of specifically transgender, obviously, both professionally working with kids when I was a school psychologist, in my own personal life, and then professionally with my students, there's so much research that's been done recently, because for the longest time there wasn't. But the fact is I have several students who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, and a lot of my research is mental health based, right? Mm-hmm. The issues surrounding mental health are significant for many people in the LGBTQ community. So of course, given that mental health and emotional reg is one of my interests, I wanted to do more. That's probably too much information.
Not at all. So, I guess it kind of leads you in a direction to talk about maybe the common myths or misconceptions about identity. I know a lot of us, I'm a heterosexual male. That's all I've ever known. I don't know anything else. I've never had feelings in a different direction. And so sometimes people like me can sound maybe insensitive, right, or maybe even offensive sometimes in the way we talk about that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But in your world, obviously, you look at things in a much different aspect. And I don't know those feelings. So can you kind of walk me through some of the misconceptions about what maybe someone like me would think about gender?
Of course. And I meant to say this early on, that you and I have been lifelong friends, and while we do not always agree on things, we are always respectful, and we're always willing to have a conversation about something, and that's what's lacking in this day and age. Like, people just don't want to have a conversation.
I completely agree.
So you and I have on occasion had to say, let's just agree to disagree and still respect one another. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to necessarily love everything that comes out of my mouth, and vice versa, but if we just listen to one another, I think that this could be a really fantastic conversation. So in terms of some of the misconceptions, you said something really interesting right away. You said, I'm a hetero male or heterosexual male. One of the common myths is this conflation of sexuality and gender when they're different, right? So if we're just
I agree with
talking
that.
about, so if you said I'm a cis male, you know, that's really what we're talking about. Oftentimes, yes, there's some correlates there, but
So for those who don't know, cis male, the way I understand it, is the gender that you're born with is the gender that you have become.
And the terms that they would like to...
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. So
Okay.
they would say the sex you were assigned at birth is the sex that you feel that you are, and your gender then aligns with your sex assigned at birth. And even the term, like people would say, oh, your biological sex matches your identity, and then, but there's issues with that because our identity is housed in our brain, and our brain is biology. So it's, I think one of the common misconceptions or myths is that, well, gender is completely socially constructed. Yeah, there's aspects that are socially constructed, but the bottom line is your sense of maleness or femaleness or somewhere in between, or non-binary or whatever, gender fluid, whatever it is well established at a really early age, as early as 4 years of age. We know how we identify, and I think it's important when we talk about gender identity, we're not talking about gender expression. It's not what I look like on the outside. It's not about my mannerisms. It's not about my interests. Your gender identity is actually, unless you say it to somebody else, is private, and it's in your brain, and it is your sense of belonging to a particular category. That is all it is. And it's a huge thing, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you
I know
do
exactly
not
what you mean.
know anybody's gender identity by looking at them, because there are people who don't express their gender for one reason or another. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I covered a couple of myths or misconceptions.
And I think a lot of that with me, and again, it's not being persistently naive or ignorant. For me, it's more about, again, when you don't have those types of views or feelings,
right.
It's hard to look outside of that and think, how does somebody not know what how could it be so fluid that you don't know what gender you are? Or you have a struggle with what gender you are. I mean, it's really difficult for someone, I guess, in my head to think, how can that possibly be? But obviously it is, because that's the state that a lot of people go into.
Okay, yes. So I'm going to say a couple things. So outside of trans, and the way I personally will define trans is, some people use it more of as an umbrella term. I'm just using it within the binary, meaning trans male, someone who was assigned female at birth, their identity is that of male or man, right? And then vice versa for trans women or trans females, right? So I know that there's some people who are not, we're not talking about that right now. So in terms of, because there's other gender identities, one being that you hear about non-binary, that's super popular now. We'll see how that plays out. There's always been third genders. This is not just our society in this time and place. There's always been examples in history. So this is, again, not a new psychological or biological or human phenomenon. But there is one gender identity, and it's called gender fluid. That would be the one where they really do, their identity changes and shifts. But for the vast majority of us, whether we be cis or trans, we're stable. It's just that when you say people are struggling, well, they're struggling because they've received messages either overtly or kind of like covertly, that it's not okay to be trans. Right?
Right. Absolutely.
So when they're struggling, they're not struggling with their identity. I mean, there are other things involved in terms of it changing. But if the message that you receive from a family member, and family is the most salient influence for all of us. All any kid wants, all any person wants
is acceptance.
To be, right. I mean, that's all they want. Unconditional love, acceptance,
of course,
positive regard, right?
And that probably has always been.
Right. So if you hear the message, even if it's not said to you directly, that being trans is not okay, do you think you're going to come out to mom and dad and say, guess what? You're not.
Right.
So the struggle lies just in that, and then if you talk about society and everything else, does that kind of make sense? So
it makes a lot of sense.
In my experience, and this is just anecdotal, but also in the research that's been gathered, the majority of people, vast majority of people who are trans have always known that they were trans. If they didn't have the words for it, because if that was not part of the, and I'm not saying that parents have to talk, but there's always going to be some period of perhaps self-exploration, and I think you had mentioned that at one point when we were just talking. If they don't have the right words for it, if they've never been exposed to it, they just know I'm supposed to be a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel it. Like I don't feel it in my mind, my heart, my soul that I'm a girl, but I don't know what word that is. So part of their exploration is finding out, well, what is it then that I am? Does it?
And I completely understand what you're saying, but I would like to find out, though, especially from you. So when someone is struggling with their identity, and it's right at the beginning stages of what is this? What am I feeling? How do you determine how much of that is and I guess maybe I'm using the wrong term here, a sexuality issue, an identity issue as far as male or female, or could it be something a lot deeper where I sometimes feel, and again, this is maybe made out of ignorance or it's made out of, just not knowing. It could be more of and when I say a mental issue, it could be something a little bit rooted deeper than just if you don't fit in, how do you know if you're going there because you don't fit in and you're looking for a way, you're looking for a group to fit into, or is it something that's more deep rooted that there's a real mental issue that they're struggling with that they're not looking at?
No. I am rolling my eyes at you.
I know. I can see that. Nobody else can see that, but I can see that.
I need people to know this. Once upon a time, it wasn't a DSM. It was considered a mental illness, which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm asking.
I know. I said myself, I'm not going to say things because you're entitled to believe what you believe.
Oh, it's not what I believe. I'm just asking you from that perspective.
From that perspective,
devil's advocate.
It was really interesting that you said, first and foremost, that they don't fit in, so they want to fit in. So what they're going to do is choose to say that they're trans because trans people fit in. Do you know how? Trans people do not. That's a hard road.
Mm-hmm.
So no one, 99.99% of people, I can't speak for all people because you never speak in absolutes, have chosen to say that they're trans in order to fit in. But here's the thing too, is identity isn't about what you say, it's about what you feel. And we never really know that, right? So can you really ever know the mind of another? No, and that gets into a whole different philosophical discussion. But all I can say is in terms of the research, in terms of anecdotally, that the issues with being trans is not because they feel pressure from the outside world. In terms of their identity, it's innate, it's hardwired, it's part of just who they are. I would assume, and I can't imagine people would wish that upon themselves, just because we live in a society that makes it incredibly difficult. So I don't believe that's an issue, because just like in terms of, and it's sexual orientation, like that's not, I know some people, again, when they talk about trans, they're like, we're sexualizing kids. It has nothing to do with that. We're not even talking about their sexuality at all. Like, put that aside. This is just about how I feel in terms of my maleness or my femaleness, again, or non-binariness or whatever it might be. I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I was asking it in a way that, obviously, where do you determine if there's, and again, maybe I'm asking this wrong, I don't know. Is it a mental illness as far as, and I'm not saying that anybody that's trans has a mental illness. I'm not saying that. There's a complete, that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying, how do you determine where the line is, or how do you drill down to find out if there's more there that's causing this to happen? Because people can regret maybe changing their identity to a certain degree. They can't, and they have, right? to a certain degree.
Yes.
Whether it's 1 or it's 1,000,000, who knows? I don't know.
Very small percentage. Right. So if you were going to talk about gender-affirming care specifically, and when we talk about gender-affirming care, so, okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a step back. Gender identity doesn't mean I'm even going to do anything to my body, right? Mm-hmm. It just means whether it be private, and I keep it private because I don't want to, not everybody comes out who is trans, so Correct. They might continue to live their life in a way that, does it cause them distress? Absolutely. Absolutely. Study after study after study shows this. Mm-hmm. But in one of the most recent, farthest reaching studies, I will, if anybody's ever interested, I'll get the specific numbers, but thousands of trans folk as participants. And these participants did actually start the process of gender-affirming care. And then they were asked, do you have regret? How are you more satisfied? Mm-hmm. A lot more satisfied? Mm-hmm. Just a little more satisfied? Mm-hmm. Not satisfied? What are your regrets? By and large, the vast majority of people, a full 85% of these thousands of people said, I'm far more satisfied. And then another smaller percentage of maybe...
Satisfied with what?
Just the fact that they're going, that they
did what they did.
Affirming their gender, and that might mean surgery, that might mean hormones, that might mean I'm not doing all that. If it's gender affirming care, there's something. There might be facial reconstruction, whatever mm-hmm. it is. But even people who say, okay, I'm not getting things done, but I'm going to at least present myself in a way, right? So mm-hmm. it looks different. But if mm-hmm. we're talking gender affirming care, chances are we're talking hormones, surgery, something like that, right? So mm-hmm. all these people actually went through something. Mm-hmm. They don't. It's not specified. So again, a full 85% said far more satisfied with my life. Another smaller percentage, 5 to 10%, said I'm a little more satisfied. There's only a small percentage, and even if I wanted to be generous and say, let's say 10% of the people said, I'm not. I have some mm-hmm. regrets. They unpacked that a bit in this study. So, why do you have regrets? It wasn't because they didn't feel connected with their new appearance or whatever it might be. It's because the backlash that they received from family, from society, mm-hmm. losing their jobs. So people have to understand that when people say, oh, well, all this, and that's become part of that's always the argument. Oh, people regret. It's such a small percentage. And yes, we should care about that, but it's not because it's because the people around them are not allowing them to be their authentic mm-hmm. selves. I mean, come on. That blows my mind. And then in terms of if there is someone who, because there are people who regret it, but keep in mind there is an identity known as being gender fluid, and that just might be someone who is gender fluid, meaning that you really, throughout life, your gender identity changes, and that's a small percentage of people, but they exist. So does that make sense?
And that's probably one of the more difficult areas for, again, someone who's not like that to understand how you could. And when you say gender fluid, can you describe that a little bit more in depth as far as when someone's like that? That seems like almost inconceivable to me that could happen. Now, obviously it does, but I'm just asking that from again a completely ignorant point of view.
Tony, it's not ignorant. I feel the same way because my identity, I'm cis, but it's always been stable. So when I first heard about
what could change that, though? What happens along the way?
It's not, I think that a lot of people think that, was it trauma? No. There are so many biological, prenatal and perinatal correlates. Correlates. I don't want to say risk factors because then it makes it sound like it's something wrong. But there's things that epigenetic and genetic mechanisms at play mm-hmm. for transness and gender diverse individuals, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of, yes, I'm not going to say that there aren't any social influences. It'd be foolish to say that there aren't, but by and large, who we are is rooted in our biology. I don't know all the answers. They're still continuing to look at that. The bottom line, though, is, I keep saying the bottom line like there's a million bottom lines here, but
right.
It's like, if your family, the people around you are supportive, you're going to be able to pursue that more, and there's other people that won't. And so it might look like they're wishy-washy, but it's too hard. That people were just like, they had, for the people who said, oh, they regret it, or that they were less satisfied, and then when they said, well, why, list some things more specifically. And the one that I keep saying that stuck, because it stuck out to me, is that someone said it was just too hard because the people around me just, it was too hard.
And that's understandable. I think there would be anything from even just simply coming out as gay or lesbian. I mean,
yes.
I can understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a difficult process, even when you think that the people around you are going to be accepting of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there's always that fear, I would assume. See, and I can't speak on it because that's not my lived experience, so I don't want to make it sound like I really know, but I would assume that that's really got to be kind of scary, because you just don't know if the rejection is going to be there, and that really does start it's like a fear of the unknown.
And that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I know for a fact someone like me who's never struggled with that. Obviously, I could be completely ignorant about a million different, aspects of this, but then there's people listening that are going through it. Not only going through it, but their families are going through it, their friends are going through it, their employers are going through it. I know sometimes it's even an issue for workplace situations.
Yes, it is.
So I guess what I would probably, because you mentioned a bunch of things that talk about research. So where have we gotten to with research with this? Are we anywhere near understanding what we're supposed to be understanding, or is there still a massive amount of area left that we're just not getting right now in any of the aspects of it? I don't even know what I would focus on.
I mean, in terms of, let's say, causality, there's still far more. The vast majority of researchers, and many of medical who are doing this type of stuff, the biological research, are saying that there's biological correlates to it, right? But just like any other human characteristic trait, it's too hard to, it's too complex to just say, oh, it's this combination of genes, or it's these epigenetic mechanisms that occurred during pregnancy. But we know that, first of all, like, we didn't even discuss, like, there are some people who are intersex, and that's a small percentage of people.
Well, what is that for our listeners?
So intersex is just those people who, in terms of your sex assigned at birth, or say, again, I don't want to say biological sex, but I'm going to go ahead and say it, is you are consistently male or you're consistently female, meaning that your genotypic sex, meaning your X's and Y. So I'm XX, you're XY, right? That's your genotypic sex. But there's variations on just that would then result in, that would be an intersex person. It could also be that during the prenatal period, if it happens to be a genotypic boy, meaning an XY, and the androgens that are surrounding them, right? There's, I hate to say this because there's some people that have what's known as complete androgen insensitivity, and they call it a syndrome, but people who have it don't, they're like, I'm not a syndrome, I'm just a person. But anyways, so in utero, they're unresponsive, their body does not respond, their little tiny embryonic body doesn't respond to the androgens, and so they're feminized. So it's really interesting, like, there's all these types of intersex where they might be XY, so you'd think automatically, okay, well, they have male genitalia. That's not the case in this particular syndrome. That they completely have, they've been feminized. You're right. So, and even like during puberty, like, it's fascinating stuff. So that's just a couple of examples. So the roles of testosterone and androgens during prenatal environment. There are some, the most recent research is looking at epigenetic. I keep saying the word, and I'm going to, that's all I can say because it's a really new area. And I don't know all the ins and outs of where it's going. But the bottom line is, I said it again, it's. I think the shift has to be made to. People don't choose to be trans. They are or they are not. Your identity is your identity. You and I didn't think anything about it when we were younger, and someone say, "Oh, look at you, Tony's a little boy." But you're like, "Yeah, I'm a little boy." Someone called me a girl. Yeah, I didn't have any questions about it because that was always in my mind, and how people identified me always matched it. But it's not like someday they choose and there's some mental illness related to it. It's the mental illness, or the struggles, I should say, aren't about their identity unless they're not allowed to fully express their identity in ways that they would like. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
So it's not so much, if you're trans, you have a mental illness. There are some people with gender dysphoria that's in the DSM, and it's some people even question, should we even have that as a potential diagnosis? And yes, we should. I would say yes if it means they can get some services. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I just don't want trans people to feel like there's something wrong with them.
No, and I'm not saying that there is. I mean, obviously it's like any other part of society. I mean, there's going to be people that are healthy with their healthy heterosexual, and there's going to be people that are obviously completely on the other end of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sex you are or anything along those lines. But in our case, though, so this is going to probably be an ignorant question, but when we were young, we grew up at the same time. We grew up in a relatively small community that didn't obviously have to address this very often. I mean, there were a couple maybe instances, but not many. It seems, and again, completely ignorant view of this, but it seems like when we were young, this was not a prevalent situation. As we've gotten older, obviously, it has expanded into a much bigger thing. Is that just because of the media exposure, or is it and these things have always been the way they are? Or is it just something that has evolved because of societal changes over the past 40, 50 years? Have we kind of gotten to this point now where it's a little bit more prevalent because of that? Or is it media pushing this along and now we're realizing what's going on? I mean, how did it change? How does it seem like it changed so much from 40 years ago to right now?
I think...
Or is there a change and we just ignored it?
I think trans people have always existed.
Well, of course they have.
And it's just that whether or not they expressed it, I think that's probably the biggest thing, because the backlash back then, I mean, there's backlash now. I can only imagine what it would be like 50, 60 years ago, 40 years ago. So in terms of the media, I think the role that I don't think that media makes people trans, what it might do for some people is, and listen, I have my own issues with social media. I could go on and on and on about the dangers of social media, but it could be that now that knowledge and information is at your fingertips, that people who maybe 50, 60 years ago were like, I don't feel like something's, I don't know, I'm feeling like they call me girl. I feel like something's not right. That doesn't feel right for me. But maybe people just didn't have the words for it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So in that regard, people are able to go online, they find their communities. Sometimes people would even say, because I've heard the argument that, well, people are always trying out these new labels. Well, okay, let them. I still firmly believe that gender identity is very early appearing, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years old. But when you're not part of the mainstream, when you're not a part of again, we're in a cis-normative society, and when you don't fit that, maybe you're just exploring a little bit because you just don't quite know. There are some, I don't want to say common pathways, because everybody's coming out experience is, I mean, there's definitely similars, but it's their own, I don't know, private and to them unique experience. But so I don't know if I answered your question, but I think it's always been there. It's just that now it's in our face all the time because everything is in our face all the time. Everything all the time.
And there you have it, folks. Part one of my discussion with Dr. Mary Tiede, and I have to say this. My hope is that everyone understands why I am tackling this subject matter. With Newvision Oldways, there are no closed doors here. I want to go to places that others fear to go. I want to ask the questions that could make so many people feel uncomfortable, but yet are so important to ask. And if we are lucky, we can learn about a subject that has taken center stage at times. No matter what side you are on, it's always worth having a discussion that might help us all understand something that most of us just tend to ignore or form opinions about without any real attempt at seeing the other side of things. We have only scratched the surface with this discussion, so tune in for episode 2, and Mary and I will dig even deeper into this, and I hope you will join us. So what did you think of this episode or any of the episodes? I would love to find out. And I know there's a lot to unpack here with this one especially. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. As I announced last season, the new NewvisionOldways.com website is up and running. Check out all the episodes, the Revelations blog and news page, and a subscription link, as well as a link that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow me to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help, and of course, cancel anytime. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the send us a text message link, and if that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com, and you can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at Newvision Oldway. Remember, there's no S on the end of that one. At Newvision Oldway, and check out the Newvision Oldways YouTube channel. Type in Newvision, one word, Oldways, one word, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. And Facebook, same thing, Newvision Oldways podcast, and you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are growing platforms for us still and expanding all the time. So we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you could do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, donate to us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on, that would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests, like I said before, that we will be booking in the future. So Visioneers, welcome to what will be the best season yet, season number 5. I can't wait to get your input. I also can't wait to get together for the next episode of Newvision Oldways. And until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is,
This episode and all the episodes of Newvision Oldways podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.